I think that AV8 may have just created their best watch yet. This is a brand new limited edition pilot's watch by the Aviation watch brand, and it's very easy to see the hard work that's gone into this watch by its insane level of detail. However, today we'll be putting it through the brand new 10-point challenge. This is where we'll be rating the watch on 10 different aspects of its design and functionality, and at the end of the video we'll be rating the watch out of 10. So let's get into it. So AV8 is a watch brand that primarily produces aviation-style watches. Most of them are inspired by the World War II Fliegers that were first invented during the Second World War, and this new AV8 model follows that same sort of design language. However, it is a collaboration with this plane. Well, not this exact plane, but a plane that looked very similar to this. Basically, this plane in the 1940s went faster than any plane had gone before. It actually went faster than the speed of sound. And if you're wondering where I actually got this model from, it comes in the box with the watch. However, if you're not into planes and you don't like the idea of having a plane on your shelf, then you can actually turn it into a watch stand. And I think that's a pretty cool little feature. So in terms of the brand and the history behind this model, I think that AV8 as a brand is one of the more respected in the micro brand world. But to be honest, this collaboration with Bell X1, the aircraft, is a bit random, although it does make sense because it is a pilot's watch. So in this section, I'll be awarding half a point. Now this is very much a Flieger watch, but more of a modern take on a Flieger. This is confirmed by the 5-minute numerals on the inner, and the larger hour numerals at the 12 and the 6. However, AV8 for some reason didn't want to put 12 on the dial. Instead, they opted to put a 0, which, I'll be honest, is very strange. But it's different, and I think it looks pretty good actually. Although it's definitely strange when it's midday trying to tell the time, because it's not 0, it's 12. Now usually with Flieger watches, legibility is the most important thing, and I think that the hands on this watch are definitely super legible, but the indices not so much. And you can still tell the time at a glance, don't get me wrong, because the hands are so big that it's easy to read. But usually Flieger watches are some of the easiest to read at a glance, and I don't think the same can be said for this one. But the center of the dial features a grained texture, and the outer is raised above, which gives the dial a nice level of depth. I'm also very impressed with the use of color. The black, blue, orange and white works really well together, and the color matched date wheel looks super slick. So overall, I think that the design and the legibility of the dial is super sharp, and it gets the full point on this one. So the materials here are nothing out of the ordinary. You get a full stainless steel case. The crystal on this watch is sapphire, and it does feature blue AR on the underside. Now I'm always impressed with Spinnaker and AV8's anti-reflective treatment. They always do a very good job, and when it catches the light, it always looks amazing. Now this watch does have a screw down case back, but it only has a push-pull crown, meaning that we only get 50 meters of water resistance, which isn't a massive issue for a pilot's watch, but this is a sporty style watch, and to be honest, I would have liked to have seen 100 meters. So because of that, and because the rest of the materials are pretty standard, it only gets half a point in this section. Now the movement inside of this watch is the standard Seiko NH35. It's very true that this movement is easy to source parts for, it's easy to service, and it's super reliable. But let's be honest, this is just the standard micro brand movement that we see from pretty much every micro brand. And that's not a bad thing, as I said, it's a good movement, but you'd expect some of these more established micro brands to start maybe using some of the more premium movements that we don't see in the startup micro brands. However, this watch does feature a very cool custom rotor, which actually looks like it's a little knuckle duster for someone that only has 3 fingers. So because this movement has a custom rotor and a colour matched date wheel, I am going to award it the full point. Although I am getting a little bit bored of the Seiko NH35, I can't lie. Now for me, where this watch absolutely shines is when it comes to the details and the finishing. The black and orange bezel is amazing to look at. It adds a real level of depth to the watch that you don't usually see from side angles. The crown is also fantastic. It matches the bezel colours perfectly. The grippy bit of the crown is black, and there's a cutout relief section in the centre that's orange. The crown is signed, and the crown guards just look incredible. All of the flat surfaces on the watch are completely brushed, and they have a polished finish around the edge. The watch does feature faux screws in each corner on the front. Yeah, I don't think these actually do anything, but let's be honest, they look pretty cool and they suit the style of the watch. This point is easy to award. The detail and the finishing on this watch is great. It gets the full point. Now, the Lume experience for me is a big letdown. Usually, micro brands shine in the Lume department, and that's because they have to. There is so much competition out there with other micro brands that they have to deliver good Lume in order to keep up with what others are offering. However, this AV8 is off the pace. There is good Lume on the hands because there is so much of it, but it fades really quickly, and the indices and the 0 and 6 numerals have some Lume, but it dies almost straight away, and it doesn't shine bright at all even at the start. So I'm afraid that the Lume on this watch is a bit of a letdown and it gets 0 points. Now, the bracelet on this watch is a H-link style that features a completely brushed finish and it looks pretty sharp. There is a taper from the lugs down to the clasp, and there is a polished edge to each of those center link sections. The clasp is fully milled on the lower and pressed on the upper. Unfortunately, the clasp only features 3 levels of micro adjustment, which, I'll be honest, is a little bit of a letdown. There is definitely room for more micro adjustment holes here, so I don't really understand why they've not drilled them in. However, I have managed to find a good fit with this bracelet, and I'm sure that you will do too. The end links are probably the most impressive part because they fit the case so well. They also have a double bolt action spring bar system in the back, which means that you can swap out to the second supplied rubber leather strap so easily. Speaking of, the second supplied strap is also amazing. The colours match the watch so well, and the quality feels really high. This one's easy, it gets the full point. The bracelet's great, the second supplied strap's great. Yeah, full point. Now, the comfort of this watch is where it might divide opinion. Now, I have a small wrist and I prefer smaller watches. Now, the dimensions on paper for this watch sound like they should work. However, they don't for me. Now, this watch comes in with a 41mm case, a 51mm lug to lug, and a 13mm thickness. However, if you measure the watch from corner to corner, it comes in at 48mm, which means that the watch looks so much larger on wrist than the dimensions suggest. Now, it fits my wrist, but let's be honest, it doesn't look good, and it definitely wouldn't fit a wrist that's any lower than mine, which is 6.5 inches by the way. But I do think that because of the construction and because of the case shape, it would look great on large wrists. So I can't in good faith mark this one down completely because it doesn't fit me, because it will fit other people. So I'm going to award this AV8 half a point for this section. Now, this next point is probably the most subjective of all of them. We're going to be judging the watch on the style, or the X factor if you will. Now, the overall looks of this watch for me looks like something that you'd find inside of a plane cockpit. Now, I know that that's usually the style of Flieger anyway, but with those screws and with those indices and with the hands, they all work together to make it look like they belong in a plane, and especially the colours as well. It all works together so coherently. This watch has a great modern techie vibe that's hard to explain, but it just looks good. And I think that of all the watches I've reviewed, this is probably one of the most masculine looking. So if that's something you like, then this is definitely a watch to check out. So although this watch doesn't fit me well, I very much like the style of it. I think it looks great. So this one's easy, it gets the full point. Now, the last category, and probably the most important of them all. This watch comes in at £438. Now, you can use the 20% off discount code that AV8 provide you by signing up to their newsletter, which actually makes the watch considerably cheaper. But to be honest with you, I don't think that this watch is the best value for money out there. But limited edition watches usually aren't, because you're paying for the research and development. You're paying for all the samples and all the effort that has to go into making a brand new watch. However, that comes with more exclusivity. But let's be honest, it's the collaboration of this watch that you're paying for, with the Bell X1 plane and that great story that comes with it. And the level of detail on this watch is fantastic. That bezel looks so good. The unboxing experience is also fantastic with this watch, and you get a 2-year warranty, which is always good. But I just don't think you get the best spec for the money, so this watch only gets half a point for this section. So overall, this watch got 7 out of 10, which is actually very good. The main place that this watch got marked down on is the bad lume. For everything else, it scored at very least half a point. So because this is the first watch to feature in the 10-point challenge, it's currently number 1. However, the more watches that we review, we'll be able to stack them up against each other and find out which affordable watches really are the best. So make sure you are subscribed so that you don't miss future 10-point challenges. And if you liked this video, then check out this one here. It's really good. Go on, I'll see you over there.